feel confused with the boxes, cause to me all they do is breed conflict. It's not that I've lost touch with reality of racism, sexism and nationality. Just to me all seems like insanity. Why must I rob you of your humanity to feel good about mine? It's all about crime, dehumanizing's how I justify them, so I must keep lying about the history of Africa, so I can live with the massacres and repeat my mantra: Muslim terrorists, so I can sleep at night as bombs take flight. From the working class, keep them uneducated. Truly educated men could never be a racist. Educate is to draw out what is within. Are we not all the same under the skin? I got a heart like yours that pumps blood and oxygen, and insecurities a whole lot of them. I'm scared like you deep down. I really do care that the world's not fair like you, but I don't even believe my own prayers like you. If I'm honest, I am just tired of every day filling up my car and knowing that I'm paying for the bombs in Iraq. Tired of pretending it don't hurt my heart, of wanting change not knowing where to start. Tired of listening to all the conditioning and all the forms that they got me filling. And if the tables will turn, we can but stall them. Every empire on this earth has fallen, so unless we can find another way, maybe not today but it will come one day. And it may sound like I'm bitter, but in fact, truth be told, I am quite the opposite.
I would now like Iris to pay her tribute to Godfrey. Iris.
Once I get started, I'll be all right. So once again, I really want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for the comfort and strength that your words have given us over the last few weeks. To have given to Godfrey's extended family, friends and comrades. It's given us a great deal of strength to know that so many of you are there supporting what he has done and what he wants us to go on doing on his behalf. That's in relation to you in this room, but I'm also aware, as Apollo said, of so many who across the world, who from Havana to South Africa and Pyongyang, have expressed respect and thanks for the warm-hearted and articulate way that Godfrey supported their causes. I've been very privileged to spend 40 years with a husband, friend and comrade who's worked tirelessly to build a world free from racism and imperialist wars, and a society in which all people could live in peace. I still want to highlight what I said at the funeral about his 3 C's: his compassion, his creativity and his communist principles. They are such a significant aspect of Godfrey. His compassion you are all aware of. He looked after every single person he ever met, who hardly knew him perhaps. Family and friends, passers-by. He treated them all with respect and kindness, becoming an uncle to so many people, many of you here, but maybe a brother to some of you. But his compassion extended way beyond those individual acts of common concern and courtesy. He started to look for ways to solve problems facing people in the UK as well as across the world. And the New World Outlook became the driving force that enabled Godfrey to campaign for racial equality, both working with the IWAGB as well as professionally, and an ardent anti-imperialist. Right up to the days before his death, he was exhorting us to protest against the attempts of imperialism to overthrow the legitimate government of Syria. And this issue of Lal-Kar, which I still find quite difficult to look at with Godfrey's face on the front. It seems so appropriate that the front page of the latest Lal-Kar not only has his picture on it, but it's next to an article about Syria, an issue which is much confused in this country by so-called socialists as well as others. We have to support the right of the Syrian people to support their own government. Godfrey worked so hard on that question. His creativity with his other C that I talked about at the funeral. He not only grew to have a well-formed political outlook, but he was a proper teacher. Yeah, a real one. With images, analogies, poetry, music, photography, he found ways to describe the most complex of historical and scientific ideas. In studying Marxism, his careful use of words helped so many youngsters and not so young, to grasp the meaning of our New World outlook. And of course his communism. It was his experiences in the 60s and his concern for people that brought him to espouse the ideals of communism. And during the early 70s, we met Papal and a few others and began to build an alternative to the existing political parties, a genuine communist party in Britain. However, I found some more C's. A couple of other things: craftsmanship and courage, which I think both attributes of Godfrey that you may well recognise. Because whereas I came to see the need for an alternative to capitalism through a bit of an emotional response to the experiences I'd had when I was in Africa in the 1960s as a volunteer teacher in Tanzania, I, fortunately, learnt both about the devastation that imperialism had caused to the peoples of southern Africa, and also learnt about the spirit of resistance that Julius Nyerere's Ujamaa gave voice to at that time. And I saw the support that the Chinese were giving, for instance, in building railways and so on. So that was my key to try and find out about something different to what I'd known before. Godfrey, on the other hand, was far more rational. His experiences in the anti-Vietnam War days also drew him to find out about an alternative, but he pursued it in a thoroughly logical manner, studying Marxism as a proper science. He'd be the first to admit that he didn't study sufficiently, but I know for sure that even with him in hospital in those final days was a copy of the Fundamentals of Marxism by Plekhanov. He studied and thought through all the problems he faced, whatever it might be. Mastering the printing press was one of them. I think we've got a picture of him up there on the printing press. And again, coming back to this May issue of Lalkar, issue 212, was the first Lalkar we've had to do without his guidance since 1979. And it was hard, and that's both the physical aspects of it as well as the emotional aspects. Particularly, we wanted to keep up to his standards, which were always quite high. And with his face smiling back at us on the front of the paper, Kat and I used every bit of strength we could to achieve what we knew he wanted us to do. And I think it's all right. I hope you'll be proud of the present Lalkar. And then he would also sort out how to build literature stalls. Now that really was craftsmanship. This was bits of wood and stuff. Transforming children's buggies into mobile lit stalls. Using, of course, one that had been discarded near a skip. And on this occasion, it wasn't a skip that he'd gone to put something in, because that was also a danger with Godfrey. If he went to put something in a skip, he might come back with something else. And then, of course, he would revise how his mobile literature store was working and make it better and all these things, so that in the end it had to be right. And that mobile literature store went everywhere with us for a long time, and it still does. It was on May Day again this last week. And it didn't collapse, nothing went wrong with it because he'd made it that way. That's part of what Godfrey was, but when I'm saying craftsmanship, I'm really referring to how he organised within the communist movement, endlessly meeting comrades and discussing with comrades, both to organise national and London regional activities. He was a true craftsman because he fine-tuned his knowledge and approach according to the circumstances, and he would turn his hand to anything. His contributions to Marxist study schools and circles will be sorely missed. From study schools in the 1970s in Tottenham with Papal and Ella and others, to Curry and communist study in Southall, to CPGB-ML party schools, which have just been referred to, Godfrey has been a stalwart who carefully analysed and honestly answered questions with a clarity and relevance, along with a few jokes and analogies. And as Papal said, it was with immense pride that Godfrey became a founding member of the CPGB-ML. and at last he could see his hopes and the desires of his life's work begin to really bear fruit. He would thus encourage party members to study and be optimistic, adhering to the words of Kim Il-sung, who said in 1962, "In order to make our party members indomitable fighters who are always optimistic about the future of the revolution, it is necessary to intensify their Marxist-Leninist education. Without a clear understanding of the laws of social development and the inevitability of the triumph of socialism and communism, one can neither have faith in victory nor have the high-toned spirit and competitiveness to withstand any difficulty." That's what he did. And finally, his courage. And we're not just referring to his last weeks. He was courageous throughout his political life. To have spent 4 decades with him and shared a common world outlook has been a privilege and a joy. His adherence to principles gave him great confidence and courage, which may seem a bit at variance with what we think of him being a gentle, warm person, but he was strong, he had a lot of guts. In fact, his thorough scientific understanding of dialectics and materialism gave him enormous strength for his convictions. He has not only stood up for many who faced racist discrimination, both in his professional capacity and in conjunction with the IWA, but he's also been at the forefront in challenging the rule of British imperialism on the streets of Britain and abroad, particularly in relation to Ireland, in the Troops Out movement, in the Zimbabwe Solidarity Front, and most recently in the Stop the War movement. His work has been exemplary, both in terms of arguments won and lessons learned. Having worked so closely, pretty much as a double act, for so long, I feel that now, in this difficult period, that I have a strength built from my life with Godfrey. I often say to people that I feel like part of his spine is holding me up to ensure that his work goes on. Kat too has learned how to be strong from Godfrey's example. So I feel confident that our political work will continue. We have an expanding party that is mobilising the next generation to carry on the struggle. There is a lot to be done, but we can do it. However, we will sorely miss his expertise in science, and that is difficult to replace, as Apollo's implied, particularly the biological sciences. From Darwin through to the Soviet biologist Lysenko, Godfrey was at the forefront of a Marxist scientific analysis based on his own scientific training and a Marxist analysis. He controversially defended Darwin's materialism and the Soviet agronomist Lysenko by making detailed presentations on their work, which few other people in the Marxist movement have done. But the essence of that biological work is that only the new Soviet state could enable resources to be used for the benefit of the vast masses of the people. And that's what Godfrey looked into. Godfrey's research dealt with developing agriculture. But the lesson is similar for other areas of life, where new socialism and communist societies open up everything for the majority of people. 100 years ago, Michurin, a Russian biologist, was struggling to improve fruit plants in pre-revolutionary Russia. But 20 years later, he was able to say of the Soviet system that it had given him everything he needed, everything an experimenter can desire for his work. The dream of my whole life is coming true. The valuable new fruit plant varieties which I have bred have gone from the experimental plots not into the possession of a few Kulak money bags, the rich farmers, but into the far-flung orchards of the collective and state farms. He wrote to Stalin thanking him for building a new world in which the creative energy surging among the millions of workers and peasants of the Soviet Union fills me too, old man that I am, with eagerness to live and work under your leadership for the good of the socialist development, our proletarian state. The eagerness of this Soviet agronomist reminds me so much of Godfrey's enthusiasm for building a new society. Our tribute to Godfrey must be to use the strength that Godfrey has given us to build a powerful communist movement that can lead to a bright future for all humanity. A red salute to Godfrey, my comrade, my friend.
If we're honest, true strength is the strength to be honest. And if I'm honest, I am just tired. If I'm honest, I am just tired. Tired of every day filling up my car and knowing that I'm paying for the bombs in Iraq. Tired of pretending it don't hurt my heart.